Another edition of Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President Local 237 Teamsters. With us once again, very special guest, Congressman Ritchie Torres, Ritchie with a T. Now, the first time he appeared, he was a young councilman. I believe he might have been 22 years old. But Ritchie, I said then from that conversation, you were going places. Now you're in Congress, and I expect you to do more things. And I'm expecting a lot out of you, Ritchie, and I'm hoping I'm around to see it. Welcome back to Reaching Out.
Always, when we first met, I was closer to 20. Now I'm closer to 40. So I'm aging on you.
Well, I was 40. Now I'm closest. I'm in the 60s. So if we counting, that's why I said I hope I'm around to see you. Go over his bio. For Ritchie Torres, like many people in the Bronx, poverty and struggle have been empty words for him. They are lived experiences. As an elected official, those words never forgotten. Ritchie's mother, single mother, handily raised him, his twin brother, and his sister in NYCHA projects. She said the Bill's working minimum wage, which in the 1990s paid $4.25 an hour, while Ritchie grew up with mold, lead, and no reliable heat or hot water. In the winter, he watched the government spend over $100 million to build golf courses across the street from his apartment for Donald Trump. Well, uh, yeah, and he sold that golf course. Uh,
Yeah.
he he knew that something needed to be done. In 2013, at the age of 25, Ritchie ran for the office of city council, becoming one of the youngest elected officials for the first openly LGBTQ person elected to public office in the Bronx. At the city council, Ritchie stood out. During his 7-year tenure, was determined to tackle problems big and small for the Bronx. That's why he was sent to Congress. And I want to say, I'm going on and on, but I want to leave some time for questions because Ritchie's time is precious and he has a lot to say. What have you done so far? What more can you do to help?
Look, it's a constant battle, but I've been one of the leading advocates for public housing, which, as you know, is the greatest safety net of affordable housing that we have here in New York City and elsewhere in America. And, as a congressman, I've delivered over $62 million in community funded projects for the Bronx. I partnered closely with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to secure over $1 billion for the public hospital system to the benefit of hospitals like Jacoby, North Central Bronx, Lincoln in the South Bronx. And then as a council member, I held the first ever city council hearing in a public housing development, which paved the way for a $3 billion FEMA grant, one of the largest grants in the history of New York City. And so I'm not a miracle worker. I cannot pluck a magic wand out of thin air and solve every problem. But throughout my life, I've been a worker. I've been a worker for the Bronx. And even when I leave the Bronx never leaves me. Because the Bronx is not only where I live, it's not only the place that I represent, it's who I am. It's in my DNA.
And we really thank you for your leadership as having the largest union workforce in public housing. We thank you and we look forward to working with you in the future. What is your plan to help expand Black ownership in the Bronx and across this country?
Yeah, so one of my criticisms of the system is I have thousands of residents who have paid their rent in full and on time for decades. And yet none of that is factored into their rent score, into their credit score. And
Mm,
without a credit score, you
yeah,
have no access to credit.
yeah.
And without access to credit, you have no access to home ownership. And without home ownership, you have no tool for building equity, from passing wealth from one
Hmm.
generation to the next. And so instead of intergenerational wealth, what you have in communities of color far too often is intergenerational poverty. And so I've been an advocate for expanding the scope of credit scoring to include rent payments, utility payments. According to one analysis by Vantage Score, if we were to expand the scope of credit scoring to include rent payments, we would enable 33 million Americans to have a credit score for the first time. And of the 33 million Americans, 13 million of those Americans would have a high enough credit score to qualify for a mortgage. So reimagining credit in America is one of the keys to unlocking homeownership.
Now that's interesting. I was unaware that rent and paying your bills does not count to your credit score. Did it all, was it always that way? Because I thought it always did.
No, the traditional, so there are various credit
Yeah.
scores, but the
Okay.
traditional dominant FICO score excludes rent payments, but it also has historically included medical debt. And as far as I'm concerned, medical debt says nothing about your credit worthiness, right? Any one of us could have a medical crisis in our lives for reasons beyond our control, which forces us into debt. So, by what logic does it make sense to exclude rent payments, which is within our control, but
Yes.
exclude medical debt, which could be based on tragedies beyond our control?
Wow. I was unaware of that. Having purchased a home with my wife some 27 years ago, it wasn't as difficult as it is now. And being two city workers at the time, I always told her I had money in my tax deferred annuity that people gave me the best advice, join. And when I joined, they told me I could take a loan on that for a down payment for a house. And 21 years old, I say, hey, look, now I got a down payment that's in my pocket. I always know when I'm ready to buy a home, I have a down payment. And that's what I use for the down payment. It was, at the time, it was something that I did at 21. I was building toward the future. And a lot of people, a lot of our members in 237 don't know, we will also give classes on how to buy homes. Buying a home is a class and an education all to yourself. You have to know how to budget, know what to do. So anybody who's thinking of buying a home, the first step is finding out what do you need to do to put in place to buy that home. And you should start now, not tomorrow. And whatever financial counselors you use, and Local 237 has financial counselors for our members, and we have those courses all free to our membership. You should take advantage of that. Call our office, call our legal services department, say, look, I'm interested in purchasing a home. I want to know what the steps are. We'll set that up for you, but you have to do the work, which means saving, building up your credit score. We can help with that, how to do it. We can't do it for you, but we can tell you those steps, what you need to buy, how you need to budget yourself, and just lessen your bills so you can own a home.
That's, I feel like one of the greatest deficiencies in our school system is the failure to teach people how to build wealth.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, there's nothing more important than knowing how to manage money and build wealth for you and your family. That's the
yeah.
legacy you're leaving behind for your children and grandchildren.
And we have those financial counselors for membership. And right, building a home, I mean, buying a home is something that you pass on. You pass on that wealth. So I know that all too well. And when you pay rent, and my father-in-law told me, my father told me, when you pay rent, you're not paying toward anything. But when you pay your mortgage, you're paying toward owning that house, that property. I never forgot that lesson. Um, Now, a subject that is not dear to anybody, but is happening, so we should address it. We are all seeing the issues of ICE, whether it's in Long Island, whether it's in Massachusetts, whether it's in Los Angeles, California, whether it's in Maine. What do you think about it, and what do you recommend we do about it to get a hold on that situation? And this broadcast is coming after 3 people were shot, 2 fatally in Minnesota.
Well, first, I'm appalled by the execution of American citizens. And I'm just as appalled by the brazenness with which the Trump administration has lied about executions that have been caught on video and that every one of us see with our own eyes. I mean, for Kristi Noem to go on television and lie to the American people and label Renee Good and Alex Preddy as, quote, domestic terrorist is a disgrace. Like, she should resign, and the United States Congress should impeach her. And I've co-sponsored articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem for not only defending indefensible behavior on the part of ICE, but also demonizing and defaming American citizens who lost their lives. Like, where's the humanity? Where's the decency? And so I feel strongly we have to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary. We have to repeal the big ugly bill, which invested $75 billion in ICE. ICE now has a larger budget than the FBI, ATF, and DEA combined, which is unacceptable. And everyone in federal law enforcement, including ICE, should be expected to operate with transparency and accountability, which means unmasking themselves, which means wearing body cameras. And if you are an officer who abuses your power, if you execute someone with impunity, you should be prosecuted and punished to the fullest extent of the law, period. But right now, we have a two-tiered justice system in which the political allies of Donald Trump are above the law, and those who are declared enemies of the state are treated as beneath the law. And that's unacceptable. That's not what a democracy looks like. That's what an autocracy looks like.
You're listening to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President Local 237. Our very special guest, Congressman Ritchie Torres, and you're talking about proceedings that are going on. You're talking about ICE at the moment. Now, here's something for anyone who wants to defend ICE. Listen to this. January 6, 2021, there was a protest of thousands, and they entered the Capitol. You know all too well because you were there. I know you were there.
Yeah.
Because I have a family member that was there, and he told you how to get out through the tunnels. Because I remember she told me. I was worried about her being safe, but she knew how to get out through the Russell Building and everything else. Not one, well, only one protester was killed because that protester heeded a warning not to enter the chambers. And they were given a warning shot, one shot was fired, and unfortunately that person was struck and killed. However, it could have been far worse. There were no executions for those protesters. They came in, they desecrated the Capitol, they left body fluids all over the place, both liquid and solid. The Capitol was left in a shambles. I noticed, and we're not talking about it, but those protesters were allowed to destroy the Capitol. Now, the people of Minnesota, citizens, are not allowed to protest. You're going to shoot them with your untrained force. And let me tell you something. I am a peace officer. The training I received, nothing I received justified what was done. Those were killings. Those were executions. And that's what I saw. And I am not going to say, well, they feared for their life. There was no weapons. The car, you could have gotten out of the way because the car wasn't being aimed at you. That young man who was there had a firearm, did not pull that firearm. Only till he was knocked to the ground did they discover a firearm and they executed him. I can't say any more. Now, had more police officers shot and killed protesters at the Capitol, the right would have been up in arms, but those police showed restraint to the point where they got their butts whipped. And now we're talking about ICE, badly trained. And I guarantee you, if you went through some of those records, you will find a lot of those people who protested are now belong to ICE. If you go through it, and I want Congress to systematically go through the records of who was hired, because I guarantee you they'll have criminal records that were wiped away through the partners that were given, and they were given jobs. They should be unqualified, and they should not have jobs in law enforcement. Anyone who has a criminal record or even a record of being pardoned should not be in law enforcement, period.
Look, America has a long and noble tradition of civil disobedience, right? Civil disobedience was at the heart of the civil rights movement. Yet the Trump administration is threatening the American people with a chilling message, right? If you are civilly disobedient, then you will be executed.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
once
yeah,
executed, you will be demonized and defamed as a domestic terrorist.
yeah.
And
But
again, that's not the logic of democracy. That's the logic of fascism.
but only if you are against me, Donald Trump. If you're fighting on behalf of the notion that the election was stolen in
Yeah.
2020, which it was not, it's okay to enter the Capitol and destroy the place on
Right.
my behalf. You will get pardoned. That is something that's not talked about enough. And I usually don't say anything publicly, but I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Right is right. And I defy anyone to tell me I'm wrong because I know what I'm looking at. I know what I see.
And
And
unlike the January 6th insurrectionist, Alex Preddy committed no crime. He was
no,
simply holding a camera, filming police
right,
misconduct,
right.
which is protected activity under the First Amendment. We have a constitutional right to use our films to phone law enforcement agents, period.
And further than that, he got involved because ICE was beating a woman. And he could not stand there and film that and not get involved. And that's why he got involved. And he was pepper sprayed
Yeah.
before he was killed.
Well, he was pepper sprayed,
Mhm.
wrestled to the ground, surrounded by multiple agents, disarmed because he had a gun
Yeah, yeah,
holstered, concealed.
yeah,
And only then did ICE put 10 bullets into his body.
yeah.
Once he was disarmed and pepper sprayed and shoved to the ground.
And they did a triple threat on him. What do you mean a triple threat? He was insulted, he was assaulted, then he was executed. Triple threat. Disgusting. Um, what do you think of the job that Donald Trump has done as president? That's a question after we just spoke.
I mean, Donald Trump is an embarrassment. I see him as a threat to American democracy, and he's a failure by his own standards. I mean, he ran on a platform of putting America first and lowering cost. And instead, he's done the opposite. He's more concerned with nation building in Venezuela than he is with nation building here in the United States. He's more concerned with nation building in Greenland than he is with nation building here in the United States. You know, in the subway, there was a sign that read, "We don't want Greenland. We want healthcare." And that expresses the views of most Americans. We don't want Greenland. We don't want Venezuela. We want healthcare. We want housing. We want childcare. We want America to put first. And instead, Donald Trump is putting America last.
And Greenland doesn't want us because they have free health
Yeah.
care. They have free health care. They don't need us.
Yeah.
Venezuela doesn't want us because they have their own nation. And they see what's going on to, why would I want to belong to a nation that kills its own citizens? And here's a man who criticized Iran, and then he turns around and does the same thing. You're going to send the U.S. troops to Iran because they're killing their protesters, but you turn around and do the same thing here. I don't think anybody said that publicly either.
You make a powerful point. Look, what happens in America does not stay in America.
No.
It affects us internationally. It affects our moral standing internationally. You
Right.
know, in 1955, when Roy Bryant and J.K. Millam murdered Emmett Till, that was not a local story. That was an international story. And
Yeah.
when the murderers were acquitted, there was a European headline, a newspaper headline that read, "The life of a black person in America is worth less than a whistle," because he was murdered for reportedly whistling at a white woman. He was barbarically murdered, kidnapped, tortured, abducted, thrown into a river. And his mother famously chose to have an open casket in order to show the world the brutality of
Mhm.
Jim Crow, the brutality toward Black Americans. And so what we do as a country locally has international repercussions.
And years later, it was reported that she lied,
Yeah.
never whistled. A 14-year-old boy going
Yeah.
to Mississippi from Chicago had no interest in her, as my mother would say, a man in the moon. And it was a lie. He was tortured, killed, mutilated for a lie. And they so proudly did it. And the world did see it. And the exhibit,
and the murderers got away with it.
yeah, and the exhibit was in the African American Museum. I don't know if it's still there because under this administration, they're trying to erase everything. Like you didn't see it. You didn't see slavery. You didn't see Emmett Till. You didn't see any of that. We have 1 minute left. Would you like to say anything in that minute? And Ritchie, Congressman, you could always come back. You have an open invitation. You don't have to wait for an invitation. You say, you know what? I have something to say, and I want to go on and say it. I don't want to be interrupted. You come on.
Well, look, I just want to thank you for your longstanding friendship. I want to thank all the dedicated employees at local Teamsters 237. I mean, you're doing God's work. You are preserving the greatest stock of deeply affordable housing in the United States. I'm a product of public housing. I would not be where I am today were it not for public housing and the stability it gave me and my workers, which means I owe a debt to you and to everyone in your union. So thank you for your friendship and thank you for your service to the city and to the country.
And we thank you for not forgetting, and we thank you for fighting for us. And we thank you for everything you've done and about to do in your career. And we wish you a lot of success. And with that, we support you. I want to say it again. We support you. So in your upcoming election, we support you. We are with you. We are Team Torres.
I never doubted it.
No, but we wanted to publicly say it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
With that, this is all the time we have for this edition of Reaching Out. We thank Congressman Torres once again for coming on Reaching Out, and we wish him a lot of success. Thank you very much, Tom.
Take care.